You might be overestimating the importance of idioms in your English fluency journey. Scrap that. I'll hazard a guess that you are most definitely overestimating the importance of idioms. I know that's an odd thing to say as someone who focuses on helping intermediate to advanced English learners speak English with confidence. It is also an especially odd thing to say in a video that I am going to put at the start of a playlist called Business English Idioms 30-Day Challenge. Bear with me though, I'm going to explain what I mean. First, don't stop learning idioms. They can add flair to your language and they can enhance your communication skills. But there are two mistakes everyone makes with idioms that I really want you to avoid on your fluency journey, especially in a professional context, so that you don't get frustrated. Mistake number one, intermediate to advanced learners often overuse idioms. Why do people do this? Well, one reason is that people learn a lot of idioms and they just want to immediately start using them all at once. Really though, the issue is a big misconception about the role of idioms. They hear native speakers effortlessly weaving idioms into their speech and assume that's the mark of fluency. They want to emulate that fluidity, and so they use more and more idioms all at once, thinking that is the key to sounding more natural. But here's the thing, native speakers don't rely solely on idioms to get their point across. They know it's all about striking the right balance and knowing when to sprinkle in one idiom for added flavour. When learners overuse idioms in an attempt to sound more like native speakers, it usually has the opposite effect. Instead of coming across as more fluent, they might sound forced or even pretentious. It's like trying to season a soup with spices. You want to use the right spices at the right time. You don't want to put too much in or it won't taste good. So you find yourself tempted to go overboard with idioms. If you're in that situation, take a step back and remember, fluency isn't about cramming your speech full of fancy words and phrases. It's about expressing yourself clearly and authentically. Use idioms sparingly to get your message across, but don't allow it to overpower your message. Mistake number two, well, getting lost in translation or not considering the connotation. The connotation of idioms varies in different contexts and cultures, and not all intermediate plus learners notice that. The connotation of a word is the thoughts and feelings that come with that word. For example, the connotation of warm is comfort. Perhaps you think of a warm cup of tea or a warm fire. The connotation of balmy is more tropical. Perhaps you think of a hot day on a beach. Both those words have the same denotation or literal meaning because balmy literally means pleasantly warm, but they have a different connotation, the thought and feeling. Actually, even as a native speaker, I've had experiences where I've been surprised that some of the idioms that I have used just did not translate well in different countries and situations. Let me tell you a brief story. During my undergraduate degree in English Literature and Language, I won a fully funded scholarship to study at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. In Canadian universities, they do a lot of group projects, something that did not happen ever at Glasgow University English Department at that time. I distinctly remember being quite stressed during a group project for one of my classes, and I said, "This is tough. We are going to have to pull out all the stops." And I was met with silence. There was just a table full of blank faces. We'll have to pull all the stops out, like work really hard and use all our resources well. Still blank faces, but now some smiles. Like when people play a pipe organ and they have to pull the stops out to make noise. No, you don't use that. You don't know what I mean. Okay, we'll have to work hard. They got it. They understood. But they didn't stop playfully teasing me about using that idiom. They would say things like, oh my, we have to pull all the stops out. Because to them it felt really old-fashioned. You see, what felt to me like a fairly common idiom was completely unknown to them. They haven't had any exposure to it. They could of course understand from the context, but the connotation, the thought and the feeling around it was odd for them. It felt unnatural as it had an old connotation, and I was really young at the time. Similarly, they had a lot of idioms that they used a lot that I would never usually use. So if idioms can be easily overused and they have hard to understand regional quirks that can make you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, should we just avoid them altogether? No. Here's the solution. My suggestion is that you continue to study idioms because this will help your listening skills. For example, my Canadian friends in that group project all talked about ballpark figures, which means a rough, appropriate estimate. If I were an English learner, I might have struggled to understand from the context when they asked me things like, time-wise, what about these tasks, Sarah? Ballpark. That means they were saying, how much time, roughly, do you think you will need for this task? So I do feel that there is great value in studying idioms to improve your communication because listening skills are a crucial part of being able to communicate well. If native speakers are using the idioms, you want to be able to understand what they are saying easily. The caveat to that is that when it comes to you using idioms in your speaking, you should absolutely focus first on the idioms you've come across many times. So perhaps you were in a meeting and someone says, can you give me a ballpark figure? And that's of course telling you that people in that environment use that idiom. It is therefore appropriate to that environment. Then you hear someone using it in a documentary or on a podcast and you notice it more and more. At that stage, move it to your list of idioms you want to actively use when you are speaking. Make a note that that is a useful idiom for you for the environment that you are in. Try to use that idiom when you can in your speaking as much as possible. Work on integrating a few of these well-used idioms from your daily professional life into your active vocabulary over time. It's easy to wrongly see idioms as a shortcut to fluency. However, true fluency goes beyond simply memorizing idiomatic expressions and then using as many as you can. It's about understanding their usage and incorporating them into your speaking in an intentional, natural, and nuanced way. Learn the meaning of lots of idioms, as many as you can. Listen really carefully to native speakers and how they use them in your professional environment. Choose just a few to use sparingly. In the Business English Idioms 30-day challenge, you can rest assured that the idioms there are appropriate for informal spoken use in a professional context. If you join me for the challenge, I hope you enjoy taking the time to understand their meanings, explore their usage in context, and practice incorporating them into your speech thoughtfully and sparingly.